once, then right away rush to ask for forgiveness. Many people would despair and would assume my Hajj is ruined. Yes, those factors would affect the validity of your Hajj and the acceptance of your ibadah. But when you rush to ask for forgiveness and repent unto Allah with sincerity, Inna Allaha ghafurur rahim. Say, oh my servants, those who despair against themselves, those who transgressed against themselves, despair not of Allah's mercy, since Allah forgives all sins.
Shaykh, I want to ask you a question on kind of an opposite issue. I have a friend who went on Hajj and told me that the best food he ever ate in his life was on Hajj. Now, we know that despite the fact that there's a lot of adversity and trials, there can also be a lot of luxuries with Hajj, and it can vary in terms of what kind of packages they buy, in terms of where they stay and what they eat. Is there anything wrong with enjoying these luxuries during Hajj? Or would you have any advice in terms of the kind of spirit that you want to bring with you in Hajj in terms of consuming the worldly pleasures?
Sure. The advice is in the Quran. وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. And eat and drink, and do not be extravagant, because Allah does not like the wasteful ones. The Prophet ﷺ said that there is no worse vessel to be filled than the stomach. Simply when one stuffs his stomach with food, especially the spicy food, and you try different kinds of food and so on, you're a subject of different diseases. You're a subject of falling asleep, being heavy, not being able to concentrate. Just be moderate and eat the food which would minimize the possibility of getting infected or sick, and make sure that you cannot afford getting sick. Of course, it's all in Allah's hand to get sick or not, but each person would have to try their utmost. You know, make this experience a chance to lose some weight, to be on a diet, just to focus on the ibadah. And I'm not saying that you don't eat nor drink. I remember once that we were offered very delicious food during the day of Arafah. And of course, it was very tempting. Many people, many of us ate to their fill. They could not stand to make dua. And of course, they had to pay for that on the night of Al-Muzdalifah, where there is very little bathroom facilities. So keep in mind, this journey is very, very special. Pay much attention to the heart and the mind, not to the stomach.
Shaykh, of course, we also try to lose weight during Ramadan and often fail in that regard as well. So may Allah assist us in both efforts. Right. So, well, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about some of the more specific issues that come up during Hajj. Of course, there's a lot of concerns about doing everything right, and even someone who's watched this program or done other research may find themselves having a lot of doubts or worrying whether they've done everything according to the book, by the book. So we'll cover that in just a minute. Please stay with us. Assalamu alaikum. Back to Hajj, step by step. Shaykh, of course, if we miss one of the core elements of Hajj, we're going to feel very bad about that, and going to, of course, want to know what we can do to make it up, if we can make it up. Now, many who are coming on the planes to Jeddah airport may put their ihraam on, or enter the state of ihraam and put on the clothes when they reach Jeddah. I've heard stories of this myself. And of course, as we discussed, they've passed the appropriate points for doing this, and they may feel like, well, before I even landed, I ruined my whole Hajj. What is the situation for these people?
I would like to seize this opportunity to explain to all the pilgrims who are seeing us right now that the common idea of assuming the ihram from Jeddah airport is completely wrong. Only if you are from Jeddah, if you're a resident of Jeddah, you assume ihram from there. But if you're coming from any other point, if you pass by the appropriate meeqaat, appointed place, you have to assume the ihram at that place, at this appointed place, or if you're flying in line with it, or if you're coming via the sea, or by any means of transportation. So you should not pass the miqat. Generally speaking, there are certain acts, which, as you said, that the core of Hajj, that they are not redeemable, such as the ihram is a pillar of Hajj, at-tawaf, as-sa'i, and the day of Arafah. Any of these acts, no one can do them on behalf of yourself. And they are not redeemable if you miss any of them. Al-ihram is a necessity to explain that you're coming to do either Hajj or Umrah or just for a regular visit. So if a person passes the miqat without assuming the intention of ihram for the appropriate nusuk, he or she would have to do one of two things. Either go back to the appointed point and assume the ihram from there, or if they cannot, then they would have to give a ransom, which is slaughtering a sheep or giving a dam.
Sheikh, you talked before that when you're in a state of ihram, you cannot participate or conclude any marriage contract or really engage in any activities related to this. What about an alternative when there's an element of sadness, a funeral? Anytime while you're in ihram or during Hajj, is it permissible to pray the janazah prayer during Hajj, or is this a restriction?
You know, I'm also amazed at many people who neglect the great reward of offering the funeral prayer for any deceased, whether you know them or not. If you happen to be in Al-Haram, we already stated that each salah is better than 100,000 prayer anywhere else, if this is in the Haram of Mecca. And it is 1,000 times better than if it is in the Haram of Prophet Muhammad Salah's Masjed. That applies to any salah, including Salatul Janazah. The Prophet ﷺ said in one hadith that if you offer Salatul Janazah for any deceased who is a Muslim, you receive a reward similar to or equal to the mountain of Uhud. So I want you to imagine, and when you get there, you see how great is the mountain of Uhud. Why would a person miss this reward? Many would say that, so let me get out before the rush, beat the traffic. I would not beat the traffic and waste this great reward of offering Salatul Janazah. So keep in mind, you're there merely and exclusively for the purpose of ibadah and to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Sheikh, on one of the rites of Hajj, the early rites of Hajj, Tawaf al-Qudum in arriving in Mecca, the first Tawaf, you mentioned two acts that should be performed. One was ar-ramal, or walking briskly, and also ittibah, folding the garment under the right, uncovering the right shoulder, folding the garment in. What happens if you do not perform these acts properly, or don't perform them at all?
Well, we emphasize that those acts are recommended acts, mustahabbat. These are some of the traditions of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ which he did, but they do not affect the validity of tawaf. If a person forgot, there is no blame on him. If a person did not get to do ramal, walking briskly, because actually you will not be able to do it, especially in Hajj. So you would pretend that you're walking briskly, even though you're just walking on the spot. Those acts are recommended acts. They do not affect the validity of the practice, of any practice, throughout Hajj from beginning to end, if you forget or do not do.
Sheikh, one of the issues that came up a lot throughout this program was the issue of managing how you fit into the space of Hajj. So whether you're at the Kaaba, whether you're at Arafah, there's a lot of people stoning the pillars. There's a lot of people in similar places with a similar aim, especially when you look at the black stone, which is just one spot, and you have all those people trying to get to it. What advice can you offer specifically about fighting to get to the black stone, but also general advice about the idea of working within the space and managing the space around you and trying to fulfill the obligations without going to extremes?
Allah the Almighty knows your intention, and He knows it better than your own self. And it will not be wrong to share my personal experience. Once I've decided, when I saw the crowd on one Hajj around the black stone, I've decided that I'm not even going to try. Simply because I'm going to hurt somebody, no doubt. I do not have to. Touching the black stone, kissing